Well, welcome to another edition of the Suitcase Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Bob Bowman, and I'm sitting here in the studio with Logan Elliott.
Yes.
And Logan hails from Modesto, Illinois, which is outside of the Springfield, Illinois area, for those of you not familiar with all of the towns in Illinois.
Yeah.
And he is a builder and also a new or budding musician.
Verily.
Right. But a builder for sure.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a minute. But you build under Logan's Homegrown CBGs.
Yes.
That's the title. So I actually have a shirt on here. just so you can see that. Look at that. That's great. I got that today. Well, Logan, thanks for taking some time to sit down with me. We're kind of blessed to be in a studio and not having to do a remote, which we were planning to do, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Much better person.
We're probably a couple of hours drive time apart from where we both live.
Sure.
But I wanted to spend some time with you. I've known since I started the podcast, I wanted to sit down with you. I think of all of the people I know in the community that build, you are one of the most prolific of the builders, right? And so I want to touch on that for a second. I'd like you to tell us how you got started with Cigar Box Guitars and became interested in it, and how that's led you to where you are, because I want you to culminate with the fact that you've got a number of builds under your belt, and you can share that number.
Absolutely. Several years back, 2015 actually, a band from Memphis came to our hometown to play, and some people said, man, they're a great blues band, you should go check them out. So a couple buddies went up there, and Matt Isbell of Ghost Town Blues Band was playing these homemade instruments. He had like 3 of them, and very rough looking, very rustic, and they just blew the place up. They sounded so extremely good. And like, wow, I took some pictures, looked at them, talked to him a little bit, and that was kind of the end of it. And then about 6 months later, they came to town again. We went and saw them again, and so I talked to him a little bit, and he's like, I've built like 300 of these. I'm like, that's insane. Who could build 300 guitars? And so I still didn't give it a whole lot of thought. And then my wife and I were in Memphis a little while after that, and we drove to Tunica just for a little drive. And we stopped at the Delta Blues Museum coming into Tunica. And it's just right there on Highway 61, the Blues Highway, and went through. And there was this board on the wall with a string attached to a slide, and you can just slide it back and forth on that and make this crazy noise. And it just got me. It got me, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to go home and do this. And I went home and basically did that. A 1x4 board and a little box on the end, and it made noise. I was like, wow, because I've loved music my whole entire life. Never been involved in it, never played music, nothing. And that's the seed that got the whole thing planted. I call it, planting the seed. That's what I call it all the time.
What kind of music were you into as a listener?
I've always been a rock and roller. I mean, country and western, old country and western, way back. Rock and roll, 70s music, grew up with it, loved it, followed it, seen many bands, and just all that. And then kind of went towards the blues a little bit more. And now I'm like full string blues. I love it. I love the origin of it, the Mississippi, just the feeling, the vibe you get from it. And these older instruments just reflect that.
Well, you alluded to how, or you shared with us how you started, how you came across the instrument, how you were drawn to it from a musical perspective. It blew you away that you saw a band that played these things. So now you're building them. How many have you built?
I am currently working on actual Cigar Box Guitars, around 830. And then I also threw in the thing that I'd seen a few of these canjos or can guitars, simple ones. And so I bought an old can collection, steel cans, and I made a couple of those and kind of perfected a little bit, put a pickup, 3 strings. And I've made 250 of those. And then also Mike Breedlove through MGB, I've bought ukuleles. I've built 30 ukuleles and a few U-bass. So I number those differently, but I don't even know, 1,100 plus total instruments.
Yeah, I'll repeat it.
Insane.
You're a prolific builder.
2 a week. Basically, you could average like 2 to 3 a week. I've built for the last 6 years.
Yeah. And now you have time to devote to that addiction, right?
I do have kinda. I did retire 2 years ago, and but I built on an awful lot of them while I was working my days off. Things kind of got let go in the yard, around the house. You could ask my wife that; she'll attest to that. Because I love building these guitars. I wake up at 4 in the morning, go to my shop, and come in at 6 or 7 at night. Is just, I don't know how do you explain it, but it just grabs you.
Well, I can tell you how I explain it or describe it. It's an
It
addiction
is an
that
addiction.
we didn't know we had until we started on that 2x4 with the piece of string in the
Exactly.
box.
Exactly.
And the next thing you know, you're at about 1,100 builds, right?
And it doesn't still seem possible to me. And I see the early ones, and yeah, they're rustic. I call them folk art with sound. That's how I label my music. I'm not going to build for the player that's playing on stage all the time and everything, but I'm going to build for the person that's the mom and pop, wants to collect one, hang on their wall, but be able to play it also, give away for a gift, special meaning, bars, and wineries and food establishments. We've built over 200 for things like that. Jen, comrade, and I.
Mm-hmm.
And she does wood burning on them, so we do specific things, for their logo and such things, and it's just really, really just crazy.
Yeah, and we should add to that. You mentioned Jen's Burnt Wood Shack.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
She has a business of her own, a small business. So if you have an opportunity or you need something wood burned or
absolutely
you need a guitar strap for sure,
she's the one, and
she's an artist.
And her husband play. It's called Not Petty. They play Tom Petty music. He knows over 70 Tom Petty songs, and they play 3 nights a week in every state you can imagine. Right. And plus, she does all this other on top of that. I keep her very busy, so it's a great deal.
Hopefully, I'll get to sit down with them in the future. Actually,
sure.
This is all things Cigar Box related, of course, on this podcast, but I consider them related.
Absolutely.
Just through their support of all the work that you do, for sure. Anyway, you retired 2 years ago.
I did.
You've hopefully done a few things around the house.
I have. I make a list.
Okay, good. You definitely don't want to have her conscious of the fact that your addiction is your only interest. But are you taking any vacations with her, whether you're not building?
Wow. We are going to Arkansas, and we're staying in a little place down there that some relatives own in July. And we're going to do a little canoeing and just do some thrift shopping. I'll buy some guitar parts. I mean, that's part of the deal.
This is funny only because absolutely every married cigar box guitar builder is, and I affectionately call it a dumpster diver once you get into this, because you literally find yourself gravitating to Goodwill shops and looking for anything that might make a good guitar, or the antique shops, or the swap meets, or whatever it is, the flea markets.
All of it. I have a really good friend. He's retired also just lately, but he worked at a landfill near home.
An actual
and he was a collector, believe me. And he's like, I think you could use this. And he would just bring me like 10 items down. And I used every single thing that he ever brought. Little piece of iron, little keys, a board of some kind.
Can you believe somebody threw this pie tin away? Isn't that a resonator? Yes. Yeah. What would they get rid of this dog bowl for?
I mean, you and I both would look around this room, and everything in here you see as a possible part. Somehow or another.
Look at that 3 sound hole receptacle.
Exactly. I could pop those off. It could be a sound hole. Yeah, it's how it works. Right. So that's the fun part of it. But I've also done a lot of really, really good community things with these, which is...
Yeah, that was going to be something I wanted to talk to you about too, because your community involvement is it's multifaceted. Actually, you're not focused on just one thing, but you have a couple of things that are passion projects for you. Why don't you share what those
absolutely. One of them is Honor Flight. Flies veterans to Washington D.C. for the last day of honor, they call it. Especially they did not get that when they came home from the service. And so my dad and I went on that in 2014, and it's all locally funded. There's no government funding or anything, so they're raising money constantly. And I got back, I'm like, wow, what can I do to help this thing? This is a cool thing. So built a guitar out of an ammo box, and it was pretty cool. And a gentleman gave me his ammo box that he had carried in Vietnam. He said, I'd like to donate this to you for this cause. So built this guitar with an amplifier, and a friend of mine went around and myself, and we set up and let people play it and stuff for close to 5 months, and sold raffle tickets on it. We set up everywhere, street corners, you name it. And when it was all said and done, we had raised right at $5,000. And the young gentleman that won it, we gave it away at a 4th of July festival, local festival. He was a combat veteran, and that was his birthday. And he won that guitar. He has it displayed in a glass display case. He said it will never come off of his wall. And so, I don't know. I've raised a lot of money. I've raised helped raise close to $10,000 towards Honor Flight, and still involved in it. I'm doing an event in July. Actually, we're doing a music event, all money to Honor Flight. And I'm making enough money to buy more parts. I don't sell them for a whole lot of money, but try to keep my costs as low as possible, and sell them. And so, yeah, that's probably the top thing that I will be known for.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And, some people might say, we know who Logan Elliott is because he's on the local news, or he's on the radio. He's on the national news. I've seen him on morning shows. I know this guy. How do you get so much exposure?
You contact people with radio stations or newspapers, and being a small town, a lot of people know who you are, and it's easy to find out, who someone is. Mm-hmm. And then I've had local papers do articles on me, different papers do. I've donated one to Christmas Wish through our local WYMG around Springfield. Mm-hmm. That was on the radio. I was on the radio show. We had pictures. They donated it. All that stuff. And then the cool thing about retirement was right before I retired, I received a phone call one day. We were on vacation, actually, and it said Busch Light. And so I thought, wow, I better take this. And it was Busch Light, and they had Googled beer can guitar, and my name came up, which I had no idea, and wanted to know if I wanted to do a project with them. So went back and forth and ended up building this little project for them with 3 of their cans on it. They just wanted the average guy that could buy their beer, mm-hmm. and make a little, diddly bow, whatever guitar. And so I did that. And these 2 guys from New York City flew to my house, a town of 200 people, and played music there. Probably did 1,000 pictures and videos and everything. And that ended up going all over. A gentleman, a name of Jordan Davis, he's a country star. I built 3 guitars for him, actually. This was a double neck, and he signed it, and they did a big giveaway, and it was on Twitter. It was on everything you can imagine. So I was just kind of like blown away. They paid me really well. We had a great time. That just doesn't happen to somebody in a small town.
Yeah.
And all 3 of these guitars, that's it. So I can look back and say, if I don't ever build another one, I've done this.
Right.
So.
And it's pretty satisfying, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when you know as well as I do, when you start one, when you get close to finishing that, everything else blanks out. You just want to finish that guitar. Like, I could eat a little later. We could run a little bit late where we're going. You want to finish that guitar.
So I happen to know, and maybe if you're watching the YouTube channel of our viewers, but if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know that your shop is a separate facility from your house.
Yes.
And it's a wood stove out there, so you work straight through the winter.
Oh, I love the winter.
A lot of people build at specific times of the year because of the temperature and all of that. But you build year round, which allows for that 1,100 total builds. Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to probably by the end of this year be heavy up around 1,500.
It's very possible. Yeah, I don't really see any time of quitting.
Right. but I'm imagining, and just to stay tongue in cheek a little bit, given the addiction, right, that your wife, much like my wife, and probably 100 other wives, if they want to see you, they come out to your shop.
Yep. Or text.
Or text.
Yeah.
And maybe deliver some food.
Yeah. Well, no, I've never had food delivered, I don't believe.
Oh.
She will tell me it is time to eat. And I will say I used to cook on a grill a lot. I mean, I used to be the grill guy.
Right.
She grills, and I come up and eat when it's time now. It has definitely changed our lifestyle a little bit, and she enjoys that. I mean, if she didn't, I would still do it.
Oh, yeah.
But she enjoys it.
I'll have to have Chris give her a call because Chris will come out to the garage when I'm building in my shop, and she'll have a tray with a brand new sausage log and some cheese she's cut up, and a thermos filled with water, and she'll say, I can feed you, but I can't make you come in and go pee.
That's the advantage of living in the country.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to get to that, Yeah. But maybe I can have Chris call and maybe, hey, you can walk a trail.
And my friends know it's cool because I have a lot of people stop by because they know, especially on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and probably Sunday morning, I'm going to be in my shop.
Right.
The other days we're babysitting grandchildren, so that's also phenomenal, and I love it. But those days, pretty much, I'm going to be in my shop part of the day. So stop by, and visit for a little bit. And
so recently, Logan, I noted, as all of us have, that you decided to learn to play, and it's been some
dabbling.
Time. Right. Well, but you're dabbling.
Yeah.
Been improving, if that's what you want to call it, dabbling.
You just, you watch and you hear, and people say, "Oh, you don't know how to play guitar," but boy, I sure know if there's a wrong note picked. I can figure that out, and I don't want to be the one doing it.
Right? Yeah. Well.
But you figure these things out a little bit, and you just slide and you pick, and it's extremely cool.
So that's another thing I think I'd like to talk a minute about. Your builds all have something in common. You want to talk about what your build style is and what you like to build?
I really like to build fretless guitars. No frets. I would burn my frets on there for a slide. I like to just kind of keep it the old school. There's plenty of you builders out there that are building these gorgeous guitars. We've seen them all weekend that are fretted, fully functional, beautiful guitars. And that's fine too, but that's not my style as much. And I don't even know how I got started, but when you take your strings past the nut, and people have an angled neck normally that goes down headstock, I don't really care for doing that, but you have to have tension past that nut to hold the string tension. Somehow or another, I used a key on one. I don't even know how. And since then, I've probably used 500 keys. So probably if you see one that has a key on it, a good chance of it is mine or someone who's trying to be like me, maybe, or something. But that's just kind of my style. And then, like I said, finding MGB parts 4 years ago or whatever it was, that changed the way I build because the parts that he sells, helped a lot and made things easier. Pre-wired parts. I mean, it simplified things. And I love soldering wires. I love laying the wires. I love doing all that.
Yeah.
So it's all part of it.
So the process itself is fun.
It's fun. It's just fun creating. And, sometimes you're stumped. Sometimes maybe you get something that's brand new, but it's wired backwards, or I've had jacks that have been, maybe the wire's on the wrong side and you're put it together and it buzzes. Always check. I learned this from Mike. Always check all that before you put it all together and glue it.
And, save you a lot of time.
Oh, save you a lot of time. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, and we all learn from our mistakes every day. I've cut the hole on the wrong side of the box thinking, with a fresh cup of coffee, thinking, man, I'm going to kill this one today. And nope.
You're starting over.
Start over. It happens, and it happens. But it's crazy fun.
So some 1,100 or 830 plus cigar box guitars. What's your favorite cigar box? Do you have one? Or I should say body, because I know you mentioned ammo cans. You do them out of a lot of things.
I've done them, ammo cans, gas cans, crutches, hockey sticks, baseball bats, canes. I'll find an old cane that's painted like with Indian things on it or something. It's really cool. Put a box on that. The hockey stick ones, I've sold 2 to the National Military Hockey League, which I didn't know existed. A guy bought one just by accident in Springfield once, and he loved it. He goes, "I live in Pennsylvania. Can you mail it?" I'm like, "Well, yes, mail a full hockey stick." It wasn't a beautiful wrap, but it got there. And so then about 6 months later, he called and he said, "Hey, what's the chances of having one in 7 days sent to Las Vegas to our National Military Hockey League convention?" Absolutely. I stopped everything I was doing, built it, shipped it, and they put that in a deal. It had jerseys and, pucks and everything, and it raised several $1,000s all together.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll do it. Absolutely.
That's awesome. What a fun, I don't want to call it pastime. I don't want to call it a hobby.
Yeah.
What a fun addiction.
It's an addiction. I mean,
I keep coming back to that.
Face it, we go buy stuff for them. Even if we're not going to build one, we still buy stuff for it, and I've been blessed to run into so many great people. You guys from Missouri, I stumbled upon Mark LeClaire at a Samantha Fish concert.
Mm-hmm.
And now our friendship is probably at least 50 people total from that one experience. Right. And having Steve Harvey, meeting him at Murfreesboro at a festival a few years ago, and he played, it was a Path Blue Ribbon banjo that I'd made. Mm-hmm. Everybody there went nuts. Everybody that was there got out of their chair and came to the front of the stage and watched him play this beer can guitar, which he had never played in his life. And then I get a call from New York. I still talk to this guy that I built him one, and then a guy from the East Coast, West Coast. So I've sold probably a dozen or more of those thanks to Steve Harvey playing that. I go on YouTube, pull up Steve Harvey beer can guitar. He's playing one of mine.
I had never seen one until I saw your beer can collection of banjos. And I remember saying, I got to have one. I probably talked to Mike on the phone, Mike Breedlove, about a dozen times easily.
Sure.
About, I got to figure out this banjo thing. I haven't built one yet, but those look so fun. And Logan's prolific with his builds. I mean, a couple hundred of them, right?
Yeah.
But I had seen them going out, and I remember it was your buddy in New York who was the first Facebook post of yours that I tracked.
Yeah.
And that's where I first learned of the banjo. And you do some really cool Harley Davidson coffee cans and some other things that are kind of rare.
They're very cool.
But I remember, I know you're not supposed to covet things, but I was there. And so I saw you at the St. Louis Cigar Box Guitar Festival. Mm-hmm. And normally Justin Johnson comes out for that.
Sure.
We have some big names. Travis Bolin will be in there. He was here this weekend, but he'll be there, and that's next week actually. So if you're in the Midwest and you want to attend a really fun Cigar Box Guitar Festival, it's in Webster Groves at the Highway 61 Roadhouse.
Yeah, very cool.
And Travis Bolin will be there, and
Cody and
the Chameleons. And then if you really want to see a different kind of band that doesn't play that, Mark Close from KSU-95. If you're a Midwesterner of any kind, anywhere in a 500-mile radius, you know who KSU-95, the radio station.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's got a band that'll be there on Friday night performing. So that'll be a fun time. Get out there. Right. But you'll also see you there.
I will be set up there as well. Yes. And other vendors.
And you can have an opportunity to get your own can.
Yeah, I do have a few canjos built. All right, now I maybe only have 6 or so on hand at this time right now.
They'll go fast.
That they will probably go fast. And, like I said, it's just so cool. And meeting the people that you meet through this whole thing is, we have something in common. We're all a little bit nutty maybe, but we all love music, and we love its origin, and you love the history of it. Right. I love the history of it. I love the blues, and it just kind of all ties together.
I loved the fact that I actually bought one of your canjos.
I forgot that.
And I still have it sitting right by my office desk chair next to my Roland Microcube, and I'll noodle on that often. Mm-hmm. And it's fretless, of course, keeping with your style, but it's a classic steel Schlitz malt liquor can with the bull on it.
Yeah.
The Schlitz malt liquor bowl. And it's a tall can.
Yeah. It's 16 ounce.
It's a really, really large one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't drink, but I recognized
Sure.
from the commercials
Sure.
in the 70s. It was
Yeah,
really
exactly.
popular.
That's when it was popular. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I play that thing, and it's amazing that's it's a neck, 3 strings, electric, pickup, and plug that jack into your amplifier, and you're
Boom.
playing a beer can
Yeah.
guitar.
Yeah.
It's fun.
3 strings in a can, I guess.
3 strings in a can in this case.
And I sent one of those to Michael Browser, who he's going to be playing. I put on a festival myself, September 22nd, a little winery, Vixen Hill Winery in Palmyra, Illinois, actually.
Okay.
It'd be my 7th festival, and it's a small thing. Michael Browser, who I had seen in Memphis several years ago, my wife and I've been following him ever since. He built and plays, and I've seen him in Florida, and he's going to be in the States, and he called me, said, "Can I play your festival?" From Belgium. Absolutely. He said, "I'm going to be in the St. Louis area right before that, and I'd love to come play your festival." How cool is that? I mean, that's cool.
That's very cool. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to close with just one final question. We're taking up a lot of your time. We're
Sure.
almost 30 minutes in, but I do want to close with one question, Logan. Having built some 1,100 plus instruments and learned as much as you have, what advice would you give a new builder who's just getting into this,
Just getting into it,
or is thinking about it? What advice would you give them that will help them? And the basic questions a new builder will have. So you can take it anywhere you want to.
Right.
But what advice would you offer them?
I mean, it's kind of like Mike, we've talked about this weekend down here, but keeping it very simple. Keep your first ones very simple. And you want to, whether you do a box or can, whatever you do need the proper measurements from the nut, to the bridge. And if fret it or you don't fret it, whatever, but that needs to be a certain distance. You can find all that on the internet, which when I first started building, I knew nothing about the internet or any far as people doing guitars. I mean, and check the internet, just, Google Cigar Box Guitar or whatever and look on YouTube. But yeah, keep it very simple. Get a box, ask for advice. Don't be afraid. There are no dumb questions, dumb answers, maybe, yes. People are very, very, very supportive in this community. As I know, everyone will help you. So reach out to a builder and, just throw something together and make a little noise, and then you might get the addiction.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, if you're interested in talking to somebody, you can read, MGB Guitar Parts and Supplies.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a learning and building series of videos as well as a list of all kinds of builders you can reach out to.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I appreciate that. Well, Logan, it's been a lot of fun. I am grateful that we were side by side to get
absolutely
to do this. And thank you for the shirt, by the way.
Absolutely. I love advertising. So
I look forward to wearing it.
I was sitting at a wedding one time, and a guy said he is an artist. He said, "I think I can make a character of you." That's where the shirt came from, and that's how that all happened. So you never know who you're going to be with.
Nice. Well, we don't, and I happen to have a Pappy's Cigar Box Guitar shirt for you that I want to give to you.
Very cool.
And I think that one is a large.
Beautiful.
But that's one of mine.
Very cool. I didn't know if you had shirts or not.
Yeah, I have shirts, but
wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, we'll close as I always close. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Suitcase Sessions podcast. And remember, there are no rules. Just keep playing. We'll catch up later somewhere down the road.
Adios.